Once upon a time, there was a itty-bitty snake by the name of Sammy. And he lived with his mother and his father and his brother and sister underneath an old oak tree out in the middle of the prairie. Well, Sammy was a curious snake, and he was curious as to what it was like outside the den. But his mother and father told him he was far too young and it was far too dangerous out there for him. But one night, when his family was sleeping, Sammy's curiosity overtook him and he decided to sneak out of the den. So he slithered up through the hole, out into the moonlight in the tall grass. And he was amazed at everything that he saw. So he kept on slithering around. And before long, guess what? Sammy was lost. He couldn't figure out how to get back home. So he kept going, and before long it was daylight. And he happened upon a small ant by the name of Addison. And he said, "Excuse me, my name's Sammy, and I've lost my way home. Can you help me?" And Addison said, "Why, sure. Where do you live?" And he said, "Well, I live underneath an old oak tree out in the prairie." And Addison said, "An oak tree? I've never heard such a place, but perhaps Weston the worm can help you." And she pointed in the direction where she could find Weston, and he was on his way. So Sammy kept going, and he kept going, and before long he came upon Weston the worm. And he said, "Excuse me, my name's Sammy, and I was talking with Addison the ant, and she said maybe you could help me." And Weston said, "Sure, how can I help you?" And he says, "I lost my way home." And he said, "Well, where do you live?" And he said, "I live underneath the old oak tree in the prairie." And he goes, "Ah, the old oak tree. I've heard of such a place, but I'm not quite sure how to get there. I think Trevor the trout can help you. He's very wise." And he pointed in the direction of where Trevor could be found. So Sammy thanked him, and he was on his way. And he slithered through the grass, and kept going, and he kept going, and he kept going. And he eventually came out of the grass and saw a stream. And over in that stream, he saw a fish. So he swam over and said, "Excuse me, my name's Sammy the snake, and I was talking with Addison the ant and Weston the worm, and they said maybe you could help me find my way home." And Trevor the trout looked up and nodded. And then Sammy said, "Well, I live under an old oak tree out in the prairie." And Trevor the trout looked up at Sammy and he said, and he pointed in the direction of the old oak tree. Well, Sammy thanked him immensely, and he was on his way. And he slithered through the grass all day and all night. And he eventually came upon the old oak tree. And he went down through the hole, down into the den, and there was his mommy, his daddy, and his brother and his sister all waiting for him. And he promised he would never leave again. The end.